let's talk about all the books I read in June and July. I read some bangers. June ended up being such a slow reading month for me that I skipped a reading wrap up, so I did want to combine it in this July one. I read 3 books in June and 5 books in July, and I don't think I DNF'd anything in either month also. I started out June with a potential 5-star from an author that I've loved before. I read The Anatomy of Magic by Alexis L. Menard. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed a lot of this. I think Alexis L. Menard has some beautiful, breathtaking writing for me. I've learned that I really like a simple style of prose that's still descriptive, but the lyrical and metaphorical enough doesn't make the plot get lost in a sense. Everything still feels very direct to the reader. It's just a little bit more flowery on its edges, but not like flowery writing. This book had pretty big shoes to fit, as her previous romantasy duology is my favorite of all time almost, and so I wanted that love again. I will say it wasn't that. Specifically, the romance for me fell a little bit flat. They have a really good like banter, and I found myself laughing at them for the first bit, and although it's slow burn in terms of like they don't get together until like later on in the story, I found that once they got together, it just was too fast. Like it was like they were their everythings, and I wanted the steps to just be a little bit slower to get there. I feel like it burned too fast for me once it started to burn, even though like the setup for the slow burn was slow burn. I always find it so interesting because I think we all mean different things when we say things. So slow burn to some people is just that they didn't kiss in book 1, but like slow burn for me is about like the yearning and the tension, and I want it to last as long as possible, and I want the romance to move pretty slowly in its steps. And so if it's slow burn up to a point and then it's like too fast, I feel like it doesn't hit slow burn enough for me anymore, and that's how I felt in this one. However, the world building, the plot of this, the mechanics of everything, I fell in love with. This is so unique. It reminds me of like Venice in Italy. It's a town with like canals and riverboats and things like that, and the town is kind of like bordered off because of all of these things. Like you have to get on a boat to cross to the other side where like the rich people live, and we follow our main character who is a doctor's assistant, and the thing is, for extra money she has started smuggling bodies. Now when the mayor of the city ends up being the body she's smuggling and she doesn't know it, she ends up being caught red-handed, and she's in some deep waters, as they all think she killed the mayor. So she makes a deal with the biggest, baddest crime lord there is in the city to figure out who actually killed them. So there's like a murder mystery happening, which I thought was a lot of fun. It kept this like plot thread moving throughout the story that I really enjoyed. There is a decent amount of traveling in this, which I don't always enjoy, but it was done really well. It was paced well. There's high action and then there's slow moments, and there's high action and then there's slow moments. I wish there were some more characters in this that were like outside of the romance. There is some in the latter half. I just wish we had gotten more of that. I think this could have been a little bit longer. The lore is really cool. How the magic system works, what this artifact is and what it does is really cool. The like use of vampire lore twisted on itself. Like they don't drink blood to survive, they drink blood to get magic, I thought was really cool. This felt so unique. It was a 4-star from me, and I'm very excited to continue on in this duology and continue to read more from Alexis. I think she is an auto-buy author for me now. And then I picked up a book that I've wanted to read for a long time. I actually own the indie edition of the story. It just got picked up traditionally, and now I have this beautiful edition from L'Oreal, and it's Kissed by the Gods. I listened to the audiobook for this, and I do think the audiobook worked really well. I gave this one 3 stars, but I really enjoyed it and I want to continue on in this series. If the second book had been out at the time of me finishing this, I actually would have like probably just carried right on into it. I was very much intrigued. The romance again fell flat for me in this one, but the fantasy aspects were so cool and so well done. This really felt like a fantasy with romance. I think the romance was insta-lovey. I think it's Fated Mates. It's not told anywhere that it's Fated Mates. I'm assuming it's Fated Mates because it's the only thing that makes sense for like the undenied attraction and way that these two exist for me. It just like didn't make sense. It didn't have enough scenes, enough chemistry for me to see it as anything but Fated Mates, but maybe I'm wrong. But essentially in this we find our main character who is given magic, and no one of her kind is given magic before, especially not a girl. Gasp! And she is taken away to this academy setting to train, and she kind of has to prove herself because it's a man's world and she is a woman, and she's gonna do everything they can do and she's gonna do it better. And of course there's meddling gods in this. Her magic is really cool. The way the void was and stuff was really cool. There is, I flying Pegasus horses in this that I thought was really, really interesting. I'm very much interested in the plot of the story, where this is going. Not to say the romance, although the romance has potential. I think when they admit it's fated mates, I think there is potential, very much potential for this, because I did like their scenes together. I just don't think they made sense to just undyingly love each other right off the bat, you know? But very much, if you are wanting more fantasy than romance, I would pick this one up because I think the fantasy aspect of this was so strong. And then the last book I read in June was this big chunker of a dystopian, Because I Killed Him. I saw this book everywhere. I saw everyone screaming about how it's the best dystopian, and I am a dystopian lover through and through. I always have been. It is my favorite subgenre, and I enjoyed this. I did. I gave it 4 stars. I actually been thinking about these characters a lot. I think the length of it is what made me really like live and breathe with these characters so much. It's a little slice of life actually in its writing style. The reason I didn't get 5 stars is also its length. I just thought it was too long. Like, it did not need to be nearly 700 pages. It just felt like too much for a first book in my opinion. But at the same time, it's what made me have these characters stick in my head so much because we spent so much time with them. We did so many little things with them. This is essentially set in the roaring 20s, but there's AI, there's robots, it's like futuristic still, and there is a credit system. No one in this world is poor. Money is not an issue, but you get credits based on your behavior, and you have more credits based on your blood color. We are made in a lab. We are not made biologically anymore, and so everything is predetermined about you essentially, and depending on your blood color, you have different skills. You are worth different things. And so we follow our main character, who I believe is a green, and she ends up going to a school academy. However, she has a weapons restriction on her. She did something as a youth, but she was protected under the democracy, which I also thought was really cool about this, was there is democracy in this. It's a dystopian, but it's in our already made like political system, which I thought was really cool. It like really made me reflect on our system and like the issues with it and the corruption in it and things like that, but also like the strengths of it. But anyways, she has been protected because she was a youth. But now that she is entering into the school academy, she's going to be seen as an adult. So things really affect her, and she has a weapons restriction. And in this world, there are essentially fencing battles, I think is what it is, for your pride, for things like that, and they are battles to the death, and so she has to do everything in her power to not accidentally get into one, because she is not allowed to use a weapon, even in a battle that someone asks her about. But of course, the day she ends up, this is a really long, convoluted synopsis as I say it, but the day she ends up going to the school academy, her dad, who is a political leader, passes a pretty controversial bill. He ends up passing a bill with the help of like the House of Commons, essentially, because they all have to vote on it. It's democracy, which again, highlight of the story in my opinion. They end up passing a bill to ban a drug, and so then the blue bloods, which are like the higher up, are mad because that's what makes them money, and then like the green bloods and stuff are all addicted to this drug, so then of course they're mad, and things start to fall. The corruption that we see, the way that people are out to kill them and things like that, there is so much disturbing about this story when you like really reflect on our own society. I highly would recommend this if you're a dystopian lover, and the romance is slow. The romance is very slow burn. It's very much pining. If you want a slow burn romance with I think he's a decently green flag man, I would pick this one up. Okay, now we're on to July, and I read some great books in July, although the book I started the month off with was not bad. I started the month off with another dystopian romance. This one was A Stark Few. This is a prison setting, and I should have known I'm not the biggest fan of prison settings, but when they work, they work, but when they don't work, they don't work for me. We follow our main character who is sent to this prison, and then from there, there's a rebellion and things like that. I don't even really remember that much about the story. It has been one ear out the other because I didn't like this. This was my 2-star of the month. I honestly felt like the romance fell flat for me, but there were so many issues for me in like the system of this that didn't make sense. There was like this battle ring in this prison setting where prisoners could fight guards to the death, and I just thought that was not realistic to what you would want in a prison. It didn't feel like a prison setting, like they were given a lot of freedom to like walk around and do stuff, and I just felt like the prison setting felt so unnecessary, and we could have done this just equally as well with just separating them with some kind of class system, which is essentially what the prison setting was trying to do. Make her a prisoner and him a guard. It's just a class system in a different way, but I think you easily could have done the forced proximity, the class system system because they're all living in an underground bunker. Essentially, like, the world has been ravaged by nuclear bombs and war and stuff. So I don't have a lot to say with this one. I know people like this one. I didn't think it brought anything new to dystopian or characters or anything for me. So I will be blessing and releasing this and unhauling it. But I had to try, and I'm very excited that I still tried it. Like, what if I had loved it, you know? Oh, I actually lied and I read 6 books, not 5 books this month. I love when I remember that I actually read an extra book. Anyways, next up I went into Verity Guild by Mai Corland. This was my 3-star. I didn't love this either. And I'm really heartbroken because I think this Fairy Loot edition is so gorgeous. I wanted to keep it. This is a locked room murder mystery romantasy. Essentially in this world, all of the leaders are put into a castle building to make laws on their world for the next week. And within this week, a murder starts to happen and there's a murder mystery and our 2 characters have to solve it. This is very, very much hate enemies to lovers at the start. And that's something I didn't love about it because within the first couple chapters, they hate each other and it's kind of like not told why they hate each other, but they literally hate each other. Eventually we learn why, but then within, I want to say 20 pages of learning why, they no longer hate each other. And this is very early on. They have like one interaction where like he sees her in a different light and then he wants to protect her and guard her and he doesn't think that she could possibly be part of this murder mystery, so they team up and she trusts him and he trusts her. And I was just like, this isn't enemies to lovers then, you know? Like, if we're gonna go so much into the hate, we need a slower burn to get there. And then I think I really just struggled with this one because the murder mystery took away from the romance and the romance took away from the murder mystery. I think the murder mystery could have been really cool, but we weren't given enough time to like explore other characters. We spent a lot of time with our 2 characters. Fair, it's a romantasy, but that then costed me trying to figure out who the murder mystery was about, who done everything, because I didn't really get time to get to know characters, understand motivations and stuff the way like a locked room mystery normally does for me, where I'm like sitting on the edge of my seat like, who could it be? I just like didn't care because we weren't given those moments with other characters. So that was really a big struggle for me. I'm really sad. I love a little murder mystery. So I was really, really hoping to love this one, but it just didn't work out that way. Okay, the book I ended up forgetting that I read was Crown Me Dead, Crown Me Yours, whatever that first book is in that series by Liv Xander. This one ended up being a 3-star and I went on a roller coaster ride with this book because this character in this book that you're supposed to be rooting for a romance is rotting. Like, he's rotting from the inside, and I mean literal rot. And so as I read this in my vlog, I was like, I don't think I can read this because like, what do you mean I'm supposed to be rooting for you to kiss this man who has maggots coming out of him? I will say that didn't end up being an issue. The further you read, you don't need to worry about that. So I ended up really enjoying it the longer I went through the story. I actually want to continue. I want to finish this duology off. I have loved reading from this author in the past. They do really dark stories. They bring to life like a lot of emotional depths, I think, in their story, which like I could see in this story. The scenes of the king and her together when he's opening up about his childhood and his trauma and his situation, I really, really did enjoy. I feel like there was so much depth to those conversations and it really brought characters to life for me. I always say check trigger warnings for their stories because they are dark. And then essentially the whole like plot of this is that the world is being ravaged by the rot and people are dying from it. Our main character is the gravedigger's daughter. She goes around with her mother and helps people like rest their dead who have been rotted and do all that. And the king's servant comes a-calling to her and tells her that he can save everybody. He can save her brother who has the rot, but she has to come. She has to fall in love with the king and make the king fall in love with her and then sacrifice herself for this like big curse that was put on the land. So there is a lot going on in this story. There was some plot twists that got me, some reveals that got me. I'm very much intrigued to continue, even though I didn't think I was going to at the start, but I'm happy that I continued listening because I just trusted the author a little bit and it paid off. Next up, I picked a very, very fun one, which I gave 4 stars, which is The Veiled Court by C.N. Crawford. This is set in the same world as their other series about Avalon Towers, but the author had sent this to me and had told me that I could dive into this without reading the Avalon Tower, so that's what I did. I very much did enjoy this. There is some like murkiness in the world building for me. I guess not world building. I try to say like the lore of the world, not like the actual building in this story, because essentially this whole like world has lore around like Merlin and Camelot, and there's like an Arthurian like retelling, a reimagining aspect of this, and I never understood that part of the story. They would be like, oh, holy Merlin, or like talk about Camelot, and I would be very confused why we chose like this thing, because it didn't really really make sense. I wasn't seeing like the legends overlap or anything like that. And some of that could be just that I had already, you know, known these lores, these legends, and I have like my own thoughts on them. So those things confused me. But like the world building that you actually need for the story never confused me. We have humans and fae that have been battling it out. They're at war, and it's got a bit of a portal fantasy. The king has now died, and the humans are trying to get rid of the fae and trying to wipe them from existence. So our main character, who has been living in the human world, now has to go seek shelter in the fae world, even though she's half and she's not necessarily loved there. However, when something happens, she accidentally kills a noble fae, and she is locked in by old magic into this trial where the nobility of the realm are competing to become the next ruler of the fae realm. But no one can know that she is not the noble, because if they knew she was just like this peasant girl, they would off her, because like they're strictly there for nobility. So she is now playing like as a secret spy, as a part to pretend she is still this noble person from this house. And I thought that was a lot of fun, because I'm always on the edge of my seat, like, will she get caught? What will happen if someone finds out? Like, you never know, because sometimes they get caught, sometimes they don't. So I was very intrigued by that. The trials were cool. I really thought they were fun. I enjoyed them. And then there's also fake dating in this. There's a lot going on, but it all worked. Like, it never felt overwhelming in any way. In this trial, there's her competing, and then there is this man who is known kind of ruthless, and no one really likes him, doesn't think he has a heart. He wants to become the king, but essentially to win, it's actually like people like voting for you, so he has to make them like him. And he thinks, what better way to do this than to date the one that like the voters all love the most, which is our main character. So they end up fake dating. I really did like that. I thought there was like some really fun elements of that. And then there's also so much backstory with her, because there's so much more to her than just all of that. I really think that this book, it's not very long. It was so easy to read, but so much is packed into it. And as I talk about it, I get giddy. Like, I'm excited to read the second book, and I think that's always a really, really good sign. I had a lot of fun with this. Do I think it's perfect? No. But if you're looking for like a fun time slump buster that you're just gonna like binge, I think this could be it. Like, I really, really do. I will definitely be reading more from C.N. Crawford. Very, very happy I read this. Okay, technically, I read another book before this, but I want to save the best for last. So we're gonna talk about The Ending Fire by Sarah L. Reefy. I finally finished this trilogy. Now, I'm giving this book 4 stars. I really did enjoy it, but I was also disappointed because I was expecting this to be 5 stars, my favorite book in the series. Absolutely incredible. Go down as one of my favorite series of all time. And I was disappointed. There was a lot to love about this book. This is so richly well done and nuanced in its conversations and commentary on privilege, on racism, on colonization, on all of that. The character depth in this is absolutely stunning. The romances in this are gorgeous. But I found myself not as attached to this final book because there was just so much going on, so much fantasy terminology, so many things happening that I was really struggling to like grasp it all really, really well. I would really struggle with like names of things, and then like having to like cement myself into where I was in the story, because like there's different cultures and everything, and this world feels so lush, and so like that is a benefit of the story at the same time, but it also was a negative to my enjoyment of the story, because at times I was just like, okay, can we slow down, because like I can't remember what this term means right now, because we have the same thing, like we have different terms for the same thing over and over and over again, which is so real to real life. So it did feel so real, but definitely took me out of it a little bit. But I do think this is stunning when it comes to revolutions, when it comes to all of that. This is an incredible story that is still one of my favorite series. I feel so attached to this story, the world building, the magic, all of that. I'm so happy that I finished it. I'm so happy that it didn't sit on my shelves. I'm so happy that I have these stunning Illumicrate editions. I did really much enjoy this. I really liked Nora's POVs in this. I think she was a standout character from the start in the end. She wasn't my favorite character in book 1, Scylla was, but as they went on in book 2 and 3, I found I always liked her POVs the best, and I feel like her POVs this time really showed like a cult leader, and like how they play on your emotions and the strings they're picking, and like really the gaslighting, and it felt so well done, and I was very much tense and feeling for Honor. I feel like she stood out to me as the character I cared about the most in the end. I also want to say that there's a villain character that I end up coming to love, and I love when an author can do that and really switch up my feelings. There's also a lot of talk on like addiction and stuff in this. I really would recommend this story. Even though I was disappointed by this final book, it was still a 4-star read. It's still a favorite series, you know? Like, I would highly, highly, highly recommend this. Okay, the last book I read was a 4-star, but I've since read the second book, and that was a 5-star, and I think I'm literally just obsessed with the series and everyone needs to read it, which was A Requiem for Fallen Stars, The Cadence of the Fallen, book 1. I just felt like I wanted to pick this one up, and I'm so happy I did, because instantly I was attached to the writing style. As I said earlier, it's the type of writing I like. It's lyrical, it's descriptive, it's beautiful, but it doesn't take away from the rest of the story. It's still very simple in what it's telling you. It's very direct, but it's just like lushed up and gorgeous. I also felt like this spoke to my soul in so many ways. I was definitely going through a hard time as I read it, and there were so many quotes that I just was like, oh, this is speaking to me right now in this moment. I was wanting to highlight things like crazy. I read it on my Kindle, so I was just like highlighting in the ebook, and I'm like, maybe I need to go back and annotate this entire thing because it was just so dang good. This follows our main character who is bloodbound to the king, but when she gets her magic at a later stage in life than you're supposed to get your magic, she ends up tricking the king into making a bargain with her, and so she can go to this school academy that's never taken in a non-noble bloodline before, go through the hardest trials and pass them all and become a student at this academy. She will gain her freedom, and the king makes the deal because he's not very smart. And from there we watch the journey to the academy and what happens at the academy. The trials in this, there's not a lot of them, there's only 3, and I felt like they all had a lot of meaning. I felt like they all were like good character development moments. I really enjoyed them. I thought they were unique. I thought they weren't rushed through, which is something I tend to struggle with in trial setting books sometimes. Even though I love them, I definitely can admit that sometimes the trial I'm just like, that was it. I didn't feel that way in this. I felt like they went at a good pace. I felt like the pacing in the story actually was just really good overall. There's a lot of lush world building, especially having read book 2. I think that if you are wanting fantasy, pick this up. Like, this is a romantasy. There is so much romance in this, but if you are wanting like the really deep fantasy, if you like things like Melissa K. Rowick, I think you will like this. Even like Spark of the Everflame, again, I think you will like this. It has that like style of like first book to second book jump that I think Spark really has. This first book is just dual POV and the second book is multi POV'd. It really expands into a fantasy aspect, I think. My minor complaint that stopped this from being a 5-star for me was the romance. I actually loved the romance. I loved the moments they had together. However, similar to The Anatomy of Magic, I just felt like it burned too quickly. Even though it takes them to like 80% of the book to get romance, the second they confront their feelings, it's like they're wholly devoted to each other. And I'm just like, I feel like I need it to be a little bit slower, a little bit smoother in its devotion, you know? And also maybe because I'm a sucker for yearning. I'm a sucker for like the little touches and the little eyes and like all of that. And I thought it was so well done that I just wanted more of that. I was greedy and I was like, no, we could just not be in love yet and we could just give me more of like those scenes. This is pretty trope heavy and plot device heavy, I will say that, but I think there's uniqueness in its world building, in its characters. It really brought the characters to life. I've been thinking about these characters so much since ending it. I think that this is gonna blow up. I really do think that I'm gonna see this everywhere. I truly do. It's incredible. It's amazing. I am dreaming of this story, so I hope more people read it. It was literally incredible. The character work. There's also a platonic friendship in this that is to die for, in my opinion. To die for. So yeah, always love some friendship rep too. Anyways, that's what I read. That was incredible. I honestly had a really good 2 reading months. I'm hoping to keep this up. I'm hoping to continue loving my reads. That's all I can ask for. Let me know what your favorite read of the month was. This was mine. And if you want to continue hanging out with me, I actually read both of these books in the exact same vlog, so I'll leave that on the screen for you to check out, because who doesn't want to hear someone gush about their favorite books, you know? And I hope you have an absolutely remarkable day.